What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, January 24th, 2025. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 328. I hope that intro worked this week. I don't know why it didn't work last week. The outro didn't work, and I think I said episode 321. I think I said Mark Matthews multiple times. I was listening back just because we were having some video issues, and I noticed a few errors in my talking. Not like it's always something with me, but yeah, I screwed up the episode number. The intro didn't work, and the outro didn't work. So hopefully you listen to the intro here, Phil. I have we used to do it like 2 or 3 years ago, where I would have a hot take Friday, and it would be pretty much every single Friday or every other Friday or something like that. We would have a hot take. I have a hot take here, and it's mostly because of where I moved to. I have to go through a school zone on my way to work, but it's not a school zone yet. I get to work before 7 o'clock, and the school zone starts at 7 o'clock. But when I get home, I have to drive through a school zone. What are your feelings? If you were a parent or you are an uncle, that's one step further than I am. Do you prefer the school zones of driving through them when they are 7 to 9, or do you like ones that are like 7 to 6? So like a full 11-hour window where it's the speed limit is reduced that entire time, or a 7 to 9 a.m. and then like a 2 to 4, like a segment there where it's broken up. Do you prefer the long ones or the short ones as an uncle?
I kind of see the merit-ish of the full one, but the split one seems to make the most sense for everybody, I guess. I mean, if anything were to happen, during the other hours that the split is not taking place, then I would assume that those splits happen because in those moments, the parents, the teachers, the guardians of whoever, they can't watch all the kids at once. There's too much commotion. There's too much going on. So you have to reduce the speed so everyone's a little safer. The other times, I assume, and could be wrong, but I assume that if a child is let out because they're going to a doctor's appointment, their parents picking them up, something. For whatever reason, they're leaving the building. It's like a 1-to-1 ratio or 1-to-2. The ratio is under control where kids aren't running all over the place. They aren't running wild. So I think the split one makes the most sense for everybody. The only way the other one makes sense to me is if the school zone and they have a soccer field or something right up against a road, where if it's gym class and there's one, gym teacher to a whole group of students and somebody boots the ball and it goes into the road, that's a huge safety hazard, obviously. So my middle school has their main field it's pretty far off the road, but so I really don't think there is much of an issue. It's the best example I could give, though. It's close-ish, where if someone really just booted a ball, it could possibly go into the street. So I would understand in certain situations you might need a full day depending on the scenario, but if everything's pretty contained, where all the fields and everything are at the back of the school, and the only thing you're really worried about are buses and kids trying to walk to school, so you got to watch out for everybody, then I think the split makes the most sense in that situation.
That's where I'm at. It still wouldn't. It would affect my drive home regardless, so I would have to hit the split time anyways. But it just had me thinking, I wonder what is the reasoning behind the full length there. It's a high school, it's a middle school, and it's elementary school all in one. So it's a giant campus, and it's a long stretch of road. And I'm not complaining. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not complaining. It just had me thinking, why are some school zones, it's got the 2 hour and the 2 hour, and then the other ones are full 11 hours. You're still going normal. It's not slowing you down. It maybe costs you 15, 20 seconds, if that. So slow down in school zones. But it just got me thinking, why the heck is there an 11-hour thing here when from 8:30 until 1:30 there shouldn't be any kids running out in the street anyways? Right. So that was just my hot take. I think it should be broken up into two 2-hour segments, and all the parents.
I think it also depends on how fast that road is to begin with.
It's normally 45. It goes down to 35.
Yeah, I mean,
It could be that. Yeah.
It could be. I mean, 45s. That's quick. You're you're going pretty quick at 45. Like if it's a 35 down to like a 25, then you're already going a little slower. But 45 is a pretty quick road, so maybe that's the issue. It's just too high of a speed, so it needs to be all day to be just a little bit slower. Because even that slower speed, like 35, still it's slow, but you're still moving fast enough. So maybe it is the speed that has an issue.
I'm sure there's rules and regulations and there's explanations behind all this, but that's not why you're listening to this show. You're listening for opinions. So suck it if you really think that we're going to give you real expertise. At
least not about school zones.
Yeah, about school zones. I obey them. I don't speed through them. So, regardless if it switches to 2, I'm still going to have to abide by the first one. I drive through it like 15 minutes before it kicks on. And then I'm stuck through it, driving home anyway. So even if it splits, it won't matter to me. But let me know how I'm out to destroy all your kids with my vehicles by driving through a school zone, because apparently I'm a bad driver now, even though everybody that's listening to this is probably going to be mad at me by endorsing less speed.
I mean, you did say you obey the speed laws, though.
I do.
And you are endorsing to obey them.
I do obey them. I don't go any faster than 35 through that school zone on my way home. On my way to work, I'm going 45 to 50. I'm safe. I'm looking out for people. If you really want to get on anybody, get on the people that don't plow the roads. Those are much more unsafe than I am being. So if you want to get on me, that's fine. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok, because it's back. Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky, Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube. You can find our beautiful faces on YouTube. That's pretty much the only way you can find us there, besides going to the website at Buffalo Sports Collective, where we do have pictures of ourselves there. You can check out Phil's article that came out on Tuesday about the Bandits' 19-14 victory over the Philadelphia Wings. He breaks it down fully in depth, and then my power rankings, which everybody trashes nonstop, are out on Thursday. You can read both those articles there, buffalosportscollective.com. You can also check out the BSC Fantasy game, which we'll be going over shortly. There's a little tab at the top of the screen. Just hit that, and you can bring up the top 34, because there are only 34 people that are participating in it. You can check out our store on our link tree on our social media sites or at the top of the website by hitting the shop tab at the top of the by hitting the shop tab at the top of the website. You can represent the BSC on the go. We have some merch ideas coming down the line, so stay tuned for those, and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. We're starting with the Bills, AFC Championship, baby, but it's 6:30 on Sunday. Worst time. They hate us, regardless of how nicely we talk about them. But as we've done the last 2 weeks, besides Josh Allen, who is the most important player in this game if the Bills are to win it? They have had so much trouble with this team in the playoffs. Regular season, they seem to have their number, but the playoffs come around and it seems to just nip them in the butt. Phil, who is the most important player or players in this game if Buffalo is going to move on to their first Super Bowl since we were wee little lads?
Yeah, for mine, I'm actually making an open discussion, so it's slightly thrown right back in your face.
Oh, great.
I'm going defense either way. Oh, and he dodged it. So I'm going defense, and I'm focusing in on the 3 players that are injured, and I want your opinion on which one would make the biggest impact, and essentially with that in turn, which position becomes the most important. I think I know mine, but I'll go over the 3 big defensive injuries right now. They're still fighting through. Rapp, Milano, and Benford. I thought from the update I saw, none of them are healthy yet.
Milano was full today, I believe. Benford was limited. He was doing individuals with his...
But he's still in the protocol, right?
Yeah, he's got the giant thing on his head, Guardian cap. And then I don't believe Rapp was participating at all.
I don't think so. So out of those 3, who do you have, and essentially in this game, what position do you have being the most important of those 3 available?
Matt Milano. To me. I think Elam is not a very good practice player. whatsoever. We've known that for years now, but he seems to make noise when the lights are brightest on him. So if he has to come in on Benford, I wouldn't be totally worried about it. But with the way it's progressing and Benford is taking snaps out there, I am feeling optimistic. With concussions are always weird, they affect everybody differently. Some people take longer. Some people are like, okay, I'm right back. I'm perfectly fine. So with Benford, I am optimistic he'll be available for Sunday. Rapp, it's when you go out on a cart like that and you're not practicing on a Thursday, you're a DNP. I don't think he's going to be participating whatsoever. The benefit of that is Cole Bishop will have full-time starters minutes in practice and be ready for that, as opposed to the few times where he's had to go into relief. It's, okay, you're coming in relief. You're not ready for that starter role. For Matt Milano, it comes down to how he does versus a Travis Kelce, how he does at keeping Patrick Mahomes in the pocket, how he does against a guy like Isaiah Pacheco. He's been playing the best ball this season, which isn't a big stretch because he's been hurt most of the season. But I thought last week was his best performance by far, and you kind of saw the all-pro Matt Milano in spurts. He had that big hit on God, I can't remember who it was on, but I think it was Bateman. It might have been Bateman on that one that he dropped him for like 3 or 4 yards lost. But I would go Matt Milano just because, yes, I believe in Dorian Williams, and we did see more Dorian Williams on the field. You saw more 3 linebacker sets versus the Ravens, but I think you're going to see more Taron Johnson staying on the field, covering the Travis Kelce's, covering whoever's in the slot. So I think Matt Milano being that spy over Patrick Mahomes who can use his feet. He's not a burner. He's not a guy that's going to rush for 500, 600 yards, but he is one of those ones that can pick up a long third down. So I think having Matt Milano out on the field, to me, above all, is the number one biggest worry, which is good because he was full today, I believe.
Yeah, Taylor Rapp was mine.
It makes sense.
Cole Bishop being a rookie, not getting a ton of play time this season. Yes, he was in every game, but wasn't asked to do too much. And with the speed that Kansas City has with Worthy and going over the top, and already the Bills' safety room isn't the high most touted in the NFL. It's a little on the weaker side. Hamlin's had a really good year, really good second half. He's been fine, but you saw it in the Ravens game. They got burned over the top pretty easily right after Rapp was gone. And I think Andy Reid is smart enough and knows enough that if Rapp is not out there, to go and attack a rookie and pick on him. So that kind of concerns me, especially just, again, with the different looks Kansas City can give, with the different ways they can disguise things, and with the speed of Worthy. I'm just worried that they will play it really close to the line and then all of a sudden line him up on Cole Bishop's side and just say, Worthy, go. And it'll be just an easy, quick 6 for them, kind of whenever they need. I mean, it's not that Cole Bishop's terrible by any means, but he's not ready for a full-time starter role against Andy Reid, against Patrick Mahomes in a huge game. He'll do okay. I don't think he's going to do, terrible or awful, but he's no Taylor Rapp, especially when Rapp is your number 1 safety. So now it's not like you lost Hamlin where you still have your 1 and then your 3. You're down to your 2 and 3, and I don't know. He worries me. And like you said, it doesn't look like Rapp's going to make it. So concerning a bit. I think they'll find a way to make it okay. But I don't love it. I don't love it.
Let me ask you, because I think Rapp has played very well, especially in the back half of the season. I think he's very noticeable when he's on the field, not just for going out and just drilling players and possibly his own players every once in a while. But my question to you is, do you think this is the sort of game that you'll get an elevation of Micah Hyde, where if Cole Bishop is just not working out there, you can go back to the reliable veteran? I don't know what his conditioning is. I don't know, because even when he was in the building, I think Deion Dawkins, like, man, you got really skinny. So I don't know where his level of game shape is, but he's one that knows the offense. He's not going to get burned deep. Yes, I think the team moved on for a reason, not just him wanting to move on for a reason. I think they moved on from Poyd and Hyde for a I'm trying to tie them together. Poyd and Hyde for a reason, and I think they They might have lost a step in veteranship and playmaking abilities, but I think Rapp and Hamlin have held it down there. But do you think this is a type of game where you do get a Micah Hyde elevation, whether he is active that game or not? Do you think that's one of those practice squad players that they elevate in this one, just on the off chance that Cole Bishop is getting beat deep and you can just have a wily veteran back there that knows this team and knows that offense he's going against?
Not only that, if either of them get injured, you're screwed.
Yes,
so I do think this is a game that he should be elevated. Like you said, it all depends on his fitness level and if he's been practicing and not just strictly a veteran coach, which is kind of what they brought him in for. If he's been practicing with the team truly and he's been out there actually covering players in practice and everything, and he is game ready, then I do think this is one you should elevate him for. Whether, like you said, Cole Bishop, I mean, if they see him get burned 2-3 times, then it's like, all right, put the veteran in. He can read the plays a lot better at this stage, knows how to play in a playoff game. He's, not going to get overly excited to, the point of the wrong way, too excited. So I could see, and even just for depth, I mean, if either of them, Hamlin's had injury issues, not just the big one, but just throughout, he's had injury issues. And if you lose either of them and go down to your fourth, who I don't know who that would be, I do think Hyde should be elevated, whether he gets a ton of play time or he's just rotational out there once in a while. But like you said, it all depends on kind of what his game shape is. But even just to have the veteran out there, part of it, and injury protection. But like you said, if Bishop's getting burned left and right by a very smart offense, then I think you might need to put him in. So it'd be interesting, but if Rapp is out, I do think they should, either way, have him just even as an emergency backup if he's really that out of shape.
Yeah, I think he would have to, because I'm just looking at the
it's not good.
roster right now.
Good.
It might be Cam Lewis that has to go back there, and he's more of a cornerback slot guy. So, yeah, that would be ideal, because Kareem Jackson is right now your practice squad number 4 safety, but I would lean Micah Hyde just because of his experience. And, again, he knows the Kansas City's offense like the back of his hand. But for me, this might be a weird one, because I've had almost no problems with them whatsoever the entire season. But I think the number one position is offensive line, and it's simply due to Chris Jones, who's a monster on the Kansas City Chiefs his whole career. This year he's been more quiet. I mean, he's played in 15 games, 37 tackles, but just 5 sacks. Last year he had 10.5. Year before that, he had 15.5. He's had years of 9, 7.5, 9, 15.5, 6.5, and 2. So this is his lowest sack total since his rookie year. And it seems like a lot of Kansas City has kind of taken a step back, even though their record doesn't say so, and they're still ended up in the AFC Championship. It's kind of like, okay, playoffs, let's turn this on. But this year versus Buffalo, 5 tackles. Last year in the playoffs, 3 tackles, 1 forced fumble. He had no real stats in the regular season. 2022, 3 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. Playoffs in 2021, just 1 tackle. 2022, he had a tackle. Regular season, he had 2 tackles. So, in recent history, he's performed better than in 2021 and 2022, but he can still be a absolute monster on that line. And with the offensive line, I have had zero worries. I think they have 2 of the best tackles in the entire league. Getting Spencer Brown signed this past offseason before it really kicked in saved them a ton of money. Deion Dawkins continues to get better. Their interior, which I was a little worried about with McGovern moving to center from left guard, and then you got David Edwards playing left guard. Osiris Torrance has really stepped up. I think they have one of the best offensive lines in the entire league, a top 5 for sure. But if you're able to neutralize Chris Jones in this game, that alleviates so much pressure on Josh Allen, where he's able to feel comfortable in the pocket, which if you're giving him 3-4 seconds in the pocket, like I'm hoping this offensive line can do, he's able to pick this defense apart. And Kansas City's, yes, their defense can be, with Spagnuolo, he can really dial it up on Buffalo, but it's really going to come down to, can you neutralize Chris Jones? And what can this defense with Buffalo do to Kansas City's offense? Because it seems like when the playoffs come around, Buffalo's defense just comes up small against Kansas City. We gave them their flowers last week for what they did to Baltimore. We said, hey, if they would have lost this game, you cannot put it on the defense whatsoever. We need the offense to put up some points, and we need the defense to actually prove that, hey, it's playoff time. Yes, Kansas City's had our numbers in the playoffs before, but we can still do what we did in the regular season and shut them down.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think one of the comps, I guess, would be, the Denver game. Denver had by far the most sacks in the entire league.
Yep.
I think by like 10-ish, so it wasn't even close, and they held Denver to only 2 sacks, and even the 2 sacks they got were kind of, I don't want to say fluky, but I think one was toward the end of the game where it didn't really matter. The other one was a good sack, but for the most part, 1 sack, I would say, against the number 1 sack team. So if they can stop an entire team from doing it, who had multiple players that had a lot of sacks on that defensive line and just their edges, I think they should be able to kind of zoom in on Chris Jones and do what they do best against him. Like you said, that offensive line, which has been, I don't know if concern's the word for the last few years, but they haven't been a top offensive line in the entire league for a while. And for them to finally kind of get it turned around, and not only turned around, but everybody kind of settling in and really stepping up into their positions, I think is huge. Like you said, McGovern as a center, being a younger center, taking over from Mitch Morris, all of a sudden he's done a really, really nice job. So I do think the offensive line is going to be huge. Giving Allen a lot of time is going to be big. And then Allen being able to do what Allen does best, not necessarily hero ball, which he admitted he was briefly thinking about that ridiculous lateral.
He said no,
interview.
But his face said, oh, yeah.
His face definitely said, yeah. He said, it's just, and then he even said, like, do you think, you've gotten smarter to not make that play? I don't know if that was smarts or he just got tied up too much to flip the ball.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to hope it was him being smart, but I think he just couldn't get the ball out. But he would have. He wanted to. Hopefully he learned from his own mistake in that one of not being able to, and that game ended up being way, way, way closer than it should have. And then as far as Micah Hyde goes, just found a quick update on Monday. Sean McDermott said that he has no chance of suiting up in the AFC Championship game.
So that's out of it's probably
yeah,
going to be
I mean, we'll see. But I assume by Monday they kind of knew what Rapp was looking at, and still no chance doesn't sound. So probably a lot of faith in Cole Bishop and Hyde just being the vet on the sideline.
Yippee due to that, but we'll be able to record right after that game again, and
please win.
Please win, go to the Super Bowl, and we'll probably have to push that recording a full day because I don't think there's any way either of us are going to want to record after a Super Bowl. But especially if the Bills somehow win it. They still got 2 wins to go. They got to get through the AFC Championship game first. But we will break that down on our Monday show. We'll move forward to the Buffalo Sabres. 2 games to talk about. Monday versus Seattle. They did not come to play whatsoever. They lost 6-4. Quinn, Zucker, Tage, and Tuck were the goal scorers. Levi, 28 of 33 saves. Shots were 34-29 in favor of Seattle. Buffalo 1 for 3 on the power play. Then Tuesday came around, back-to-back. Vancouver, 3-2 win. Actually performed very, very well in this one. Won 3-2. Tage, Kulik, Peterka, the top line, were the goal scorers. UPL, 32 of 34 saves. Shots were 34-26 in favor of Vancouver. They're sitting 18, 24, and 5. Kulik looks like their best forward. He's looked like their best forward since he came back from injuries. The biggest thing in this one is Lindy made them skate hard that morning before the Tuesday game. And I don't think this was talked about enough. I think people were saying, and the people that were talking about it were like, man, coaches never do this. They give them the morning off because they want fresh legs on the back-to-back here. They're professional hockey players. Like, if you get that tired playing a back-to-back, I mean, come on. Like, the biggest thing to me is why wasn't this done a month ago? Unless he was told, hey, these players are so sensitive, you cannot make them just bag skate this. And maybe Lindy just had enough and just goes like, hey, I've tried the nicey nice role. I've tried this. Like, nothing's working. They want to be held accountable. Let's do this. And it actually showed in Vancouver. They came out and played. They busted their butts. And that's what you should be expecting all year long. You wanted accountability. You brought in Lindy Ruff to make them accountable, and you haven't been able to do it. Like, you haven't. To me, it's like you haven't let Lindy off his chain. Like, let Lindy do what Lindy has to do to get these players through this. Like, if you're that worried, and again, I'm just talking what I'm seeing. I don't know anything about this, but if you're that afraid to lose the locker room because Lindy Ruff gets angry at a few of your players, that's more of an indictment on your locker room than an indictment on your head coach. Like, you brought Lindy Ruff in for a reason. He gets the best out of the players that are there. He's been known to do that in the past. He was here for what? Close to 20 years being able to do it. If you're not allowing him to coach the way he needs to coach, I don't know what to say. It's good on him for actually and finally making the decision of, hey, these players did not come out to play on Monday versus Seattle. They look like dog doo-doo. Let's bust their butts Tuesday morning and make them go play in a game on Tuesday. And yes, by the third period, they did look tired. But guess what? I don't care. That's what you have to do to prove you can win in this league, by winning these games when you're deadbeat tired. And yes, maybe that morning skate did make it even that much more difficult. But guess what? Winning in the NHL is not easy. So you should be busting your butt every single time. Like, to me, it's just, I don't know why this wasn't done during the 13-game losing streak. Try anything. Like, you lost 13 games in a row. Why wasn't this dug out of the closet then? Why did you wait until the end of January to try this thing? It's just, it seems like something from the top down that Lindy was not allowed to do. And either he was finally allowed to do it, or he just said, I'm not listening to you anymore. I'm tired of losing. Let's try this.
Yeah, like what does he have to lose? I mean, realistically,
Right.
He's here for 2 years trying to right this team.
He might be done after one with this team. Like, he might be just like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore.
I don't need the money. I'm good.
I don't know what the heck I signed up for here.
But this isn't it. No, I agree. I mean, it's really difficult from an analyst. Well, actually, less difficult from an analyst. Very difficult from a fan perspective to put aside playoffs in any way, shape, or form. But realistically, a team like this is not winning the Stanley Cup, right? They're not even close. You're just trying to make playoffs to stop the run, make it all feel good, blah, blah, blah. But realistically, like, every single game, because this team is not a Stanley Cup team by any means, every single game should be an improvement in some way, shape, or form. Like, this should almost be, in a weird way, like a preseason, season long. Like, these skates in between games where, if we skate really hard, you might lose a game. Who cares? Like, you're not win. I know we all want to make playoffs. I get it. But from a team perspective, trying to move this team forward and be consistently good, be a good hockey team again, not just squeak into playoffs to end the drought and then go back to misery and hide forever. Like, every single game should be an improvement on something. You should be working these players nonstop, extremely hardly. If you lose a game because you're tired, who cares? Go out there and do it again and again and again and again. And, like, just keep pushing this team beyond their limits, because they need to know what it takes to win games and what it takes to be a team that's all in, what it takes to be a difficult team. Like, we've talked about it so many times that when players come from other teams, they're like, wow, this team is really soft. These practices are a joke. What is this hot? Like, are you guys professionals or not? Like, Lindy, in this instance, finally turned them into what seems to be a, hard-nosed professional hockey team. And that's what the rest of the season should be. Like, who cares about playoffs? I know from a fan perspective, that's horrifying, but you want this team not just to make playoffs and then go back into obscurity and never make playoffs again and go on another 14-year drought. Like, that doesn't do anything. Like, I want this young team to be good for years to come. And if that means not making playoffs this year, but in the future, next year you're going to make it, and the year after that you're going to be really good, and the year after that you might actually push for a cup, then I would take the misery now. But this misery is just a soft team doing absolutely nothing. It looks like they don't want to care or win or try. That's not the misery I want to see. I want to see this team giving everything they can, being pushed to their extreme limits, and showing that they're willing to put the hard work in to be a good team in the future and down the line. Because this year, it's not it. Next year, who knows? But, like, this is, like you said, this is a good step. Like, force this team into being... Awkward's not the word I'm looking for.
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Just because you got to get them out of these, like, lazy, boring, not passionate habits. Like, this team has been just, like, they've been allowed to get away with whatever they wanted for years now. Like, a lot of the leadership on this team, it's not all on them, but, like, none of them have the drive you see on top teams in the league. They just don't have it in them, and they've also been allowed to get away without having it. And now you have a coach, hopefully, that wants to get them back to have that drive, to make playoffs, to win a Stanley Cup. And, like, what they're doing isn't good enough, and your best isn't good enough. You need to be better than your best. And, like, hopefully this is a step to pushing this team into an uncomfortable zone, so in the future they're a little bit better. Because right now it's a joke.
Yeah, I mean, you're stuck with the players you have, and we've said that for how long now. So my thing is, all offseason they've been preaching accountability. We want to be held accountable. It's just, why did it take game 46 for
Right.
you to actually like these players in this organization have had zero consequences for not playing up to the standard they need to be at. You brought in a head coach to raise that standard and bring the accountability in the room. And to me, looking from the outside, who's not there every day, I'm not in the locker room, blah, 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 but just as an observer, watching the games and watching the team and listening to the voices that come out of that locker room. This team has not been held accountable for the first 46 games of the year. They just haven't. I mean, sure, you can sit Jack Quinn when he's not performing well. You can sit Samuelson for not performing well. But guess what? They go right back on the ice, and it's the same stuff over and over again. They're not learning their lessons. So maybe bag skating them before a game might jostle them and say, hey, actually, there's consequences for not performing well. There's consequences for being lazy on the ice. It's just for so long, it's been ingrained in them that I'm almost to the point where I can't even blame the players. Like,
Right. That's the problem.
If there's a little, again, I'm not a parent, I'm not an uncle, whatever, but if there's a kid out there that's misbehaving over and over and over, and you just turn to him and say, hey, stop that, and then you let him keep doing it, and then you say, I said stop that, and you let him keep doing that, are you going to eventually keep blaming the kid for doing it over and over when the person who's in charge of it is allowing it to happen? Like, there's no consequences for your actions. There needs to be consequences. Like, you shouldn't be doing this to 23, 24, 30-year-old hockey players that have known their whole lives what it takes to get to the NHL because they achieved that goal. They made it to the NHL. They know how hard it was to get there. And then they get there, and it's just like, okay, we'll just, there's no point in trying because even if we lose, guess what? I'm still going home with my money. Like, I'm still going home. There's no consequences for just, dogging it on the ice.
That's the problem.
Just maybe this is actually something to lean forward. And again, 47 games in, they're 11 points out. I'm trying to look for a bright spot here. We're both trying to look for a bright spot in this. Maybe it is something that puts them on a run, but they have to go on. They have to go on an 8 or 9 game winning streak to even get back into it right now. So it's just you're looking for small victories in this. Maybe the bag skate and them winning a gutsy game 3-2 after having a bag skate that morning is something that, hey, there are consequences. Maybe he gave them, it's Thursday, optional skate morning. I'm not going to make you guys bust your butts because of what you did. There's your reward. If you stink on the ice tonight, which they're facing, I should say Thursday because that's we're a day behind recording, versus Calgary. If they stink then, Saturday morning, bust their butts again before Edmonton. Make them realize that there's consequences for not busting your butt on the ice. It's just, I can't remember who said it. I think it was like Jason Tatum for the NBA. He goes, these time limit, I know we're going long on this, but there these minute restrictions and players that are taking nights off to rest. He goes, there's people on the stands who pay good money to see me play this game. And I think, oh God, his name was just at the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember who it was. I think he plays for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I'll figure it out later. But he goes, yeah, there's people in the stands who might never see me play because I don't travel to your city. Maybe there's a Buffalo Sabres fan out in Calgary that's a huge Tage Thompson fan, and he goes to the ice and spends his parents' or his hard-earned money to see him play, and he's dogging it on the ice. Like, you should bust your butt every single time, every single shift for the person in the stand that paid their hard-earned money to buy your jersey and see you on the ice. Like, I shouldn't be saying this, but maybe that is exactly what got through to him. I have no idea. We'll find out, after we're done recording because that's when the game will kick off. But, if they dog it against Calgary, bust their butt on Friday, bust their butt right before the game on Edmonton. Make them realize that, hey, there's consequences now. This isn't like it was before. Like, why is this happening in game 46 and 47? But, positive. Maybe that's exactly what they need. But, again, they play Thursday, Calgary. You'll know the results before we do. And then Saturday versus Edmonton. Connor McDavid will not be on the ice because he likes cross-checking players in the head. Phil, let's go over our first sponsor of the show who will not crack you over the head. Tap that tap room.
Tap That Tap Room's at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar, featuring 30 consistently rotating taps, offering a wide variety of ciders, sours, seltzers, malt beverages, and beer.
And the perfect time to try out that wall of beer is Friday the 24th. 3 to 7 is the weekly happy hour. The whole wall is beer is discounted. So head there, try your new favorites of beers. See if there's something in the store and you don't want to buy the 6-pack and it's like, what is it now, like $10-12 to buy a 6-pack of beer that you don't know, and then you're stuck with the 6 if you don't like it. Go to Tap That Tap Room, see if they got it on tap. If they do, give it a little taste, and if you love it, get the whole thing, because it is discounted from 3 to 7 on Friday. Right after that, stay there right at 7 o'clock, because it's Succulent Garden Workshop. You can create your own garden and learn more about succulents and plant care. You must purchase a ticket for this event, though, so make sure you do that before heading down there, because if you show up without a ticket, you ain't building the garden. Saturday, the 25th, 3 p.m., it's the Euchre Tournament. It's a $10 buy-in, and that includes a drink. Head out there. Prizes for the victors. And then Sunday, the 26th, Bills watch party, jersey giveaway, sound will be on. Phil, this could be the final Bills game of the year that you can watch at Tap That Tap Room. I've said it the last 2 shows. They've won both, so I have to do it again. So head on to Tap That Tap Room for all these events this weekend. It's always something going on at Tap That Tap Room. To find out what else they got coming up, check out their Facebook page and find out what's on tap and what's on deck. Go to tapthattaproom.com, because, Phil, they have something
for everyone.
Thank you. We're catching on. We're getting there. We'll move on to the Bandits here. BSC Fantasy Game Update. Top 10. The top 9 remain the same, and number 10 changed again. Top 2 are the same. Jackson B's coming in number 1, 485. Phil, who's sitting there in the co-host seat, number 2, 464. Second or third week in a row. I can't remember. Number 3, new name, Tim K, moves up 2 spots at 437. Yours truly right here moves down to 4th at 436. Nick B moves up 2 spots to number 5 at 428. My wife Brooke is down at 6, moved down 2 spots at 427. Brad D, 417, down 2 spots at number 7. Mike D, 412, up 1 spot. Stacy K, down 1 spot into 9th at 408. And then the newest name, up 1 spot, Kim D, 383. For everybody wondering, hey, where's producer Pat? He's way down at 20th. Down 7 spots this week at 375. The biggest riser, though, this week. Up 8 spots to number 19. 355, 1 spot in front of producer Pat, is Sly V.
Yeah, a lot of movement. The the top 10 is a lot of up 2, down 1, down 1, up 2. Little switches. Congrats to Kim D getting up into the top 10.
On a cruise ship.
And Jackson and I are comfortably hanging out at the top. It's going to take a lot for me to catch Jackson, which is a little bit depressing, but I do like being pretty firmly in that number 2 spot for now. I mean, we'll see. Everything changes pretty rapidly. Injuries, whatnot. Hopefully, my goodness, don't get injured, anybody. But I think it happens. So there's still plenty of season, plenty of people to rise and fall, but hopefully I at least maintain number 2.
I will give you this. By this time next week, you'll still be in the 2nd spot.
That is true. That is true.
That I can absolutely guarantee. But we'll do the NLL outlook real quick, because the Bandits do not play this week, so there is no preview. Once again, another bye. Then they face Albany next week. Then their final bye of the season. Then a 12-game stretch in 10 weeks. God, arena availability stinks! Buffalo, come on. Give the rightful owner of the KeyBank Center the rights to picking their own day. NHL step aside. NLL outlook. The 1-5 Toronto Rock head to the 3-2 Calgary Roughnecks Friday, 9 p.m. An hour later, 4-2 Ottawa faces the 3-3 Vancouver Warriors. A rematch from last Friday, where Ottawa got the 1-goal victory, 9-8 over Vancouver. 4-3 Colorado versus the 3-5 Rochester Nighthawks Saturday at 7. And then the 2-5 Albany Firewolves head to the 4-2 Saskatchewan Rush 1 hour later on Saturday. 4 games after 8 games last week. Phil, any of these guys tickle your fancy that you might be most interested in?
Yeah, a lot of them are actually pretty good. Colorado versus Rochester, one team a little bit down, one team a little bit up, so that could be a big one. I don't know I guess Rochester, we want to win that one because they're still down a little bit. Albany's trying to also come back a little bit themselves after a big win, so we'll see what they got. Saskatchewan just had a close but big loss to them, so we'll see how they rebound as well. Toronto's trying to climb out of the basement with their team getting healthy. We'll see how they do against a pretty okay, not quite sure what they are, Calgary team. Really want Calgary to win that one. I want Toronto to stay down and out. And then Vancouver and Ottawa, honestly, might be the best one of all of these. I think that'll be a really close game. Those two teams are both known for a lot of defense and not a lot of offense so far this season, and they're both pretty good. So I think that'll be a low scoring, but should be fun, interesting one. And Vancouver, after a very tough weekend, is trying to climb back themselves. They were doing a little bit better before last weekend, but starting to slip a little bit. So if they can get to 4-3 and knock Ottawa to 4-3, that would be really big for them.
Yeah, Toronto getting back Schreiber and TD Erlin last game.
Keep them down.
It
Keep
sounds
them
like
down.
Harris is on the right track to get back, but they got the word. We kind of had rumors about that a couple weeks ago. Mark Matthews done for the year with shoulder injury. They said he should be back by next year. But yeah, Calgary is a very weird 3-2 team. Can't figure them out. Their offense is really good. Their defense and McLeod is a little shaky, although McLeod has looked better in the last couple games. But they're 3-1 when they got Doby in the lineup. So their offense is exactly what I think they're even better than I thought they would be. I going into this season, I said Calgary's offense would be a lot better than they were last year, but their defense transition and net would be a lot worse than they were last year, and that's kind of what we've been getting out of Calgary. But Toronto's in a must-win. Every game that they play is must-win right now. They had Jamie Dowick on the Lacrosse Classified, I think it was Wednesday, and he was like, hey, if we were 0-5, I was kind of expecting that because of the injuries. And why didn't you really add anybody, Jamie? But that's just me. 4-2 Ottawa. I think this is going to be another low-scoring matchup between Higgins and Walsh, and you'll hear me mention Walsh in a little bit here. But Vancouver, big week here. They need to split the series versus Ottawa because both those teams might be battling for playoff seeding moving up. You got Colorado. You're trying to get back off the schneid. Going 5-3 is a lot better than going 4-4. Rochester trying to climb out of that basement dweller they've been sitting in. And then Albany, they're sitting 2-5, but they have a plus goal differential, which is insane to me. They lost against Saskatchewan week 1 in overtime. I believe it was an Austin Shanks overtime winner, so they're trying to split that season series as well. But yeah, 4 good games on the docket coming up between Friday and Saturday, and stay tuned for all that. Our NLL picks were out on Wednesday, so go check out those. You only really have to look at one column because we all picked the same teams, which is unbelievable. But since it is the bye week, we're looking at the NLL as a whole. The most surprising things and the most disappointing things that have happened so far through 8 weeks. Phil, I'm going to kick this one off. My number one biggest surprise is Jeff Teat. And through 6 games, it has been surprising that he has not been where he has been. Like, this is not a disappointing season for him because he's still putting up great numbers. It's surprising that he's not in the top tier of players right now. Through 6 games, he's got 13 goals, which is tied for 24th. He's got 20 assists, which is tied for 17th, and 33 points, which is tied for 17th. Again, not a bad season, so I can't put him in the disappointing category, so that's why I put him here, because it's surprising. He's averaging 5.5 points a game, 2.17 goals a game, and 3.3 assists a game. Now you might be saying, hey, those numbers aren't bad whatsoever. They're not. But compared to last year, he was at 7.28. The year before that, he was at 7.56. And the year before that, he was at 6.75. So this is his lowest output by far. Again, only through 6 games. But I was like, okay, why could those numbers be? Like, is he having an off season? What could it be? And even though they added a Jacob Dunbar, even though Taker Clark's in there for the full year, it seems like a lot of the problem is the offense around him is just not producing. And I dug into the numbers here. Their highest point producer besides Jeff Teat right now is 3.67. And that's Jacob Dunbar right now. You got Connor Kieran average 3. You got Clark, Sundown, and O'Connor averaging 2. And then Kyle Matisse is at 2.83. I went back and looked at past help. What help is he getting in past years? The year before, last year, Connor Kieran was at 4.39 points a game. Riley O'Connor was at 4 points a game. Kyle Matisse was at 3.88 points a game. So that's 3 players right there that were averaging higher than his number 2 on his team right now. The year before that, Connor Kiernan, 4.17. Riley O'Connor, 3.82. So not having Riley O'Connor is definitely hurting this offense, but we'll see what happens with Eric Fennell in game 2. The year before that, Kellen Crawford, 5.87. So that's what I'm saying is I think it's less to do with what Jeff Teat is doing. Yes, his 1 assist game or 1 goal game, I can't remember which one it was, did hurt his point. Yeah, it did not. It hurt his point totals, but I think it has a lot to do with his talent around him being injured and not stepping up rather than what he's doing, because players, defenses and goaltenders are able to just eye in on him and go, okay, if other players burn us, that's fine. It's just other players haven't been able to burn them. We'll see how they go the rest of the 12 games on their schedule. But to me, one of the most surprising things is where Jeff Teat ranks right now in the stats.
I think that's part of the problem is he's not being able, exactly what you just said, kind of like what Fields has been doing to start his season so far. I know he's up there in points, but he's also played 8 games, which most teams have not. So he's a little bit boosted, even though he probably shouldn't be. But teams are focusing in on him and have figured out how to stop when he goes on an individual mode, right? Like Jeff Teat right now, there were times last year where, and I'm not saying he's lost this by any means, but there were times last year he was able to just turn fire. He would have his, perfect shot picked out every single time. And there was literally nothing you could do one-on-one to stop him. But because his supporting cast has gone down this year, teams are able to just focus all of their attention on Teat. Be like, if we stop him and force the supporting cast to beat us, then we're in good shape to beat that team. And that's kind of the same problem that Fields was having earlier in the year. Everybody kind of figured out what Fields was doing and how to counter him. And now he has to figure out how to counter that. Same with Teat as far as a one-on-one, what he can do to beat a team single-handedly, which is what he's very good at. He needs to learn now how to counter that. And like you said, his supporting cast needs to step up in order to help him and take some of the attention and pressure off of him. Like you said, I don't think the player has gotten worse by any means. He's still there. He's still fine. He's still arguably the best player in the world, but his supporting cast is definitely lacking. And it's something that New York has been lacking for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, I guess hoping is the wrong word. I'm interested to see if the addition of Eric Fennell continues to help and unlock players like Larson Sundown, who just had a 4-goal game last and he's been very quiet this year as well. So, Phil, what is your first surprise in the NLL season?
My first surprise is kind of a little bit of an easy one-ish, I guess. Robert Hope for potential front-runner defender of the year right now. He's leading in loose balls with 74. He's top 3 in caused turnovers with 14. He is top 2 in block shots with 12. He is on pace for 190 loose balls, 36 caused turnovers, 31 block shots, and these are all career highs for him. If he progresses all of these on and keeps up with this pace, which he's doing a really great job of, these would all be career highs at age 33, and we know in the NLL, age 33 isn't ancient by any means. This is still a very kind of in your prime area. But last year, Courier had 184 loose balls, and he was one of the better defenders. He had 30 caused turnovers as one of the better defenders, and 14 block shots. So the block shots would be far and away better than anybody else. The loose balls would have been number 2 last year, and the caused turnovers outside of Dilks, who was ridiculous, would have been also top 2, top 3 in the entire league. So all of his numbers projected through the rest of the season, he's looking like one of the best, if not the best defender in the league this year. And I think he's doing a really, really good job. And obviously you can say Ward has stepped up, so the defense as a whole looks better, but all of those individual stats just prove how good of a season he's having so far. And to have all of your kind of career highs at this age where you're kind of peaking a little bit late is very interesting. But I think he's had a bit of a surprise start to the year, at least as elite as he has been. And PK is breaking his headset over there, so he's going to have to hold on, and he might be back.
I'm back. Sorry, my headset was dying. I had to quickly plug it in. But yeah, I agree. Robert Hope, I remember it was like, 2 or 3 off seasons ago.
You've been looking for him.
To say he was one of my top free agents, even though I knew he was never leaving Colorado. And then everybody didn't listen to the show. They just saw my graphic and go, Robert Hope's never leaving Colorado. And I went, yeah, that's why you should listen to the show and not just read a graphic. But I agree. He's having I think I've wrote about him once or twice in my power ranking. He's having a very quiet, solid season back there. And being one of the leaders and one of the only known names on the Colorado defense, he kind of stands out. So my number 2 here is out west. It's a name that you might not be super familiar with, but you will be as the years go on. Aiden Walsh. And between being young, between having the Christian Del Bianco rumors out there, he's been absolutely incredible. And I believe he's only like 23 years old. He's 3-3, 9.83 goals against average, which is 4th in the league. 79 save percentage, which is tied for 6th in the lead. Now, if you're thinking those numbers are ridiculous, they're pretty stinking good right now, and even with the great defense in front of him. But last year he was 6-5, 11.62 goals against, which was 11th worst of starters or players that had played the majority of the time in net. And his save percentage was 75, which was tied for 15th. There were 15 teams last year. Phil, he split time with Aaron Bold, but this season so far, 11-7 loss versus Colorado. He was 76.2% save percentage. 10-7 win versus Rochester. 86% win save percentage. 14-10 win over Calgary. 73.3% save percentage. 11-9 win over San Diego. 83.3. 9-8 loss versus Ottawa, not his fault, 79 save percentage, and then 14-13 loss against Philly, definitely his worst start of the year, but that was on a back-to-back weekend, a 2 games in 1 weekend, plus you had the longer extended time in Philly on that Monday game, 67.5%. But Vancouver's 3rd in the league, allowing just 10 goals per game, but their offense is down at 11th at 10.5. So he could be even better if this offense actually turns it around. And that's one thing that we were saying about Vancouver is their offense is very sketchy, but their defense is going to be electric. But I think Aiden Walsh is not getting enough credit or attention, not just based on the numbers he's doing, but the whole situation around it, where it was Christian Del Bianco's going to Vancouver. He's not going back to Calgary. He wants to go to Vancouver. And Aiden Walsh has just silenced all of that and saying, hey, I can be that franchise leader in between the pipes. Just let me have it.
Yeah, and I still think, like, if Del Bianco just randomly showed up on their doorstep, he's still getting it. I think
Yes.
no matter what Walsh does, and that's not a shot at Walsh by any means. But
it's allowing Vancouver to say, okay, we have a franchise goalie now. Calgary,
they don't need to overpay by any means. And the two, to me personally, I don't know about you, the 2 benchmarks I love for goalies is save percentage over 80 is incredible, and goals against under 10 is incredible. Like those 2 numbers, if you have 10 goals against and an 80+ save percentage, like those are really elite numbers. And he right now, 9 goals against, 80.6 save percentage, he has both of those. So to me, like you just said, he is firmly in the elite standard right now. And I think it's just, no offense to him, but like there's so many big names in the NLL with goaltending that his name, it will slowly start to rise, but like it's just not at that level yet. But as the season progresses, and like you said, if that offense can make some noise so that team can make a little bit more noise, I think he will get more and more credit as the season goes on.
Phil, your last surprise, or your last biggest surprise of the NLL season so far?
We got to fly. My other surprise is the Philadelphia Wings. Yes, the Bandits took care of business, but no offense to the rest of the league, the Bandits seem far and away the best team. They've just responded to anybody so far, and at some point, I assume we'll see the Bandits falter a little bit, even if we don't want to see it. But I think going up against the Bandits and giving them a little bit of a run, not really all that much of a run. The Bandits are just elite, but outside of the Bandits, they still went to Vancouver and beat a very, very good Vancouver team that we just mentioned, and they have 3 of the top 10 point leaders. Last year, Philly was averaging only 11 goals. This year, they're up to 14.6. If their defense and Demood can turn it on, especially Demood, I had higher hopes for him. Again, it's going to take him some time with a new team, but if their defense and Demood can really step up, their offense is there. I mean, they have a very elite offense to go up against anybody. If their defense can catch up, they will be one of the elite teams in the league. I think right now they are one of the elite teams in the league. It's just the Bandits make everybody look a little bit silly right now, so it's kind of hard after that to judge them. But they did go out and beat another really good Vancouver team to back that up. So I do think Philly, to me, I knew they were supposed to take a step forward. I don't think anybody expected this big of a step, just pole vaulting all the way to the top of the power rankings, to the top of the standings, and to one of the premier teams in the NLL right now.
Yeah, I was. I'll admit it. I was wrong about them. They did just lose Scott Dominy to an ACL injury. He's done for the year. And Damoud was on a hot streak during those 4-game winning streak, and then he kind of faltered this weekend. So it will be interesting to see how he bounces back after this bye week. But I agree. Philly has been one of the biggest surprises to me, at least. I did not have them making the playoffs, so them sitting at 5-2 is pretty impressive. Now we'll go to the disappointing, because what must go up must come down, is whatever the thing is.
You're close.
What goes up must come down.
There you go.
I was going to go with Ryan Keenan, because I've been bashing him in my power rankings. Back-to-back games, unbelievable. Larson Sundown, back-to-back games. Robert Church, back-to-back games. All of them came alive the last 2 games, so they got checked off the disappointing mark. But who didn't? Shane Jackson. Last year, 30, 53 for 83 points. The year before that, 93 points. The year before that, 77 points. He has been a 73-point or better player since 2013-14, which was his second year in the league. This season, 7, 12, and 9 in 7 games, which is a pace of 48.46 points. That would be his lowest ever. This team needs offensive help. They're tied for 9th in the league at 11 goals per game. Guess what their average last year was, Phil? I'll give you a hint. It was 11 again. This team, which we said in the offseason, needs offensive help or needs his star players to be star players. You didn't have a single 90-point player last year. Between Lyle, Jackson, and Q, they were all in the upper 80s. None of them cracked 90. You need somebody to step up. You got Lyle. Q's doing it for the most part, but you need Shane Jackson. This offense needs help. They're fifth. He's 5th on the team behind Lyle, Q, Bomberry, and Cole. This year he's shooting 17%. Last year, 24%. The year before that, 26. If Georgia is going to be a threat in the playoffs, they need Jackson to step up. He signed a 3-year deal last year with Lyle and Cole to keep the band together. He's 34. My biggest question is, if he does not turn this season around, has he hit the wall, and have we seen the last of a former MVP, Shane Jackson, in the NLL?
Yeah, I mean, I did choose the Georgia offense for a lot of the reasons you just mentioned, not only him as a player, but like you said, we've been looking for them to step up their offensive game, and they are dead even with last year and still not doing it. But because you had Shane Jackson, I decided to fade my disappointment, but Georgia's offense was on my disappointing list, and Shane Jackson is a big reason for that. He's just had such a down year, like you said, and like you said, he was an MVP. I mean, you have that in your pocket. Like, where is that player? Still plenty of time for him to fix it and get going, and hopefully that whole offense to get going. But he's a big piece and a big reason why that offense is stumbling right now. And they started 4-0, and now they have come right back down to earth, and it's because their offense is just not there. And, I mean, they're winning close games, they're losing close games, but they really just haven't had any real offensive explosion yet, and Shane Jackson's a big reason.
Yes, 100%. Phil, first disappointment.
My first disappointment, speaking of terrible offenses, is the Toronto offense. They are pretty pitiful.
Did we call it? We didn't call it this bad, but we said they would take a step back.
Yeah, we did. They
took a step backwards, fell down the flight of stairs, and get locked in the basement.
Yes, and they have not really been unlocked yet. I understand they're missing Schreiber, but going back as a fun little comparison, I know Dane Smith is a 1 of 1 for the most part, so having him on your team is one thing, but the Bandits 2 years ago were missing most of their offense. Cloutier only played 9 games, Byrne played 14, Nanticoke played 13, Brandon Robinson played 10, and yet the team repeated. They had 12 goals a game in a year where their offense was missing. And again, Dane Smith was healthy that whole season. It does help, but there was a game against the Wings with no Brandon Robinson, no Cloutier, no Byrne, and they put up 13 goals in a 13-12 victory with McCauley putting up 8 points. Nobody on Toronto is stepping up for that team. They are averaging 9 goals a game, which is just ridiculously embarrassing. Last year, they were much, much higher. I did not write down what they were at last year, but
I can find it for you.
Thank you. the big things, Mark Matthews, I know he's injured now, but he was there for the first 4 games. He's supposed to be one of their better players. He had 97 points last year. He was disappearing. Corey Small had a big year last year. He was third in their team in points, and then right now he is averaging less than 1 goal a game, even with his, 2 against the Bandits in 1 game. So, 3 goals outside of that in 5 games. He's just nowhere near a 37-goal pace. He's on less than an 18-goal pace. Nobody on their team is stepping up where they need to step up. And yes, you can say, well, Schreiber was missing, Rogers was missing. They have all these injuries. Missing one player shouldn't mean your whole team takes that big of a step back for that consistent amount of time. 1 or 2 games not getting up to that level, fine. But to have an average of less than 9 goals a game is just pretty embarrassing for an offense that was overall pretty good, and the transition is completely wiped out and missing again. Rogers is a big part of that, but there are other players on that team who are very good in transition who are just faltering this year, and the Toronto offense is just terrible.
Yeah, they were 12.11 goals per game last year, which was third in the league behind Buffalo and Halifax.
Yeah, all the way down to less than 9. 3 goals a game is a huge swing, and even last year, Schreiber missed a part of the season, and yet they were able to keep up that goals per game average. I think he missed 5 games. So even with that, you were still without Schreiber for part of the season. You were still averaging over 12 goals a game. This Toronto offense is just evaporated, and nobody's really stepping up to fill that void. I know Schreiber just had a huge game in the most recent one. We'll see if he can put that entire offense on his back and carry them, but without Mark Matthews, unless Small picks up, I don't see that offense consistently being a threat.
Yeah, I'll fly through my response really, really quick because we're already over an hour. But my biggest issue with them was they just brought it back. And you can't tell me that this issue on offense is only due to injuries, because week 1, they had their full onslaught of offense. And don't tell me Challen Rogers wasn't there, because going into it, Jamie Dowick said that he was going to be strictly a defenseman transition player. He's playing fully offense now because of the injuries. But they had their full onslaught of offensive players, and they scored 5 goals. So don't tell me that this offense has been struggling just because of injuries, because game 1, fresh off a whole offseason, they scored 5 goals. So I don't want to hear that is just due to injuries. Yes, injuries play a massive factor into it. You saw Schreiber and Rogers come back, and even TD Erlin, and they put up 11 goals. But not having Mark Matthews, but relying on the same group that failed last year was a mistake by them, and not adding anybody, even though you knew there was injuries coming into the season, was a mistake. I'm flat out saying it was a mistake. I think Brian Cameron coming into the offense really does look good. He's one of the bright points on that, and Dowick playing on the field, Josh Dowick, he is also a nice piece. They're 2 young pieces, but they're veteran pieces. Dan Craig, Corey Small, even Chris Bushi to an extent have not stepped up in the absence of their star players, and that's the biggest issue, is that the players that they were counting on have not stepped up, and that's the main issue with the offense. It's not just injuries, it's the lack of offense from who's there too. So I don't want to just keep hearing, oh, it's injuries. No, it's players not performing up to what they need to be on offense. And that's not a Toronto hater. I have been a Toronto fanboy for the last 3 years. Phil has not let me down. So you can't just say it's Toronto hate for me. But to carry on the offensive tradition, I went with the San Diego Seals. I'll fly through this. Week 1, they were flying high, 18-15 win versus the Wings. Then a 13-12 loss in overtime in Georgia, 14-11 win over Colorado at home, then an 11-8 loss versus Georgia, losing the season series. Then a bye week, then a 6-5 win over Ottawa, an 11-9 loss in Vancouver, a 12-10 loss in Las Vegas. They're sitting 3-4, 9th place. They're 3-1 at home. They're 0-3 in the road. My main issue is the offense. They're 11 goals per game. That's tied with Georgia. We were just bashing Georgia's offense. They're tied for 11th. 11.14 goals against. That's 6th. The last 4 games, though, Phil, 9.75 goals against. They're 1-3. You want to know why? They're scoring 8.25 goals a game the last 4 games. Their top offensive player right now is Rob Hellier at 33 points. That's 4.72 a game. We were saying that, Jeff Teet's having an underwhelming season, and he's over 5 points a game. This is Rob Hellier, number 1. The offense is the main issue. And going into the season, I was more optimistic than most, and I had them number 2 in the power rankings, number 1. No Austin Stotts, no Dane Doby, no Curtis Dixon, no Jacob Dunbar, no Trey Leclerc, who's only played in 1 game. But you added players like Rob Hellier, like Ryan Benesh, like Bren McIntosh, Zach Currier, Trent DeChico. Yes, they're older, but you would have thought that this team that had struggled in the playoffs last year needed a change. They went a full changeover, and it has not worked on offense. It's just they have 3 players over 4 points a game, but they don't have that star player that's averaging 6 or 7 points. They're not really getting a ton of depth. Last year, they had Berg, who was 6. They had Stotts, who was 5.67. He's not coming back anytime soon. You had Dixon, 4.92. This offense was deeper last year than it is right now, and you cannot blame – I'm not going to go into all the numbers because I know one of your disappointments coming up here, but you cannot blame Chris Irregolari because games 4 through 7 recently, when they have not been winning and not scoring goals, he's been playing lights out. The goalie is fine. It's the offense right now, and that needs to be fixed if you're looking to have a San Diego make this playoffs, because right now they're sitting on the outside looking in, and their offense right now is just out of sorts and just it's gross right now.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, like you said, the 8.25 goals for in the last 4 is kind of what we were bashing Toronto for being at right now for their whole season. So similar area, and it's just wild that 2 of the best offenses last year. Again, I know San Diego had a huge turnover, so you're expecting something a little bit different, but 2 of the best offenses in the league last year are both averaging recently closer to 8 goals to 9 goals a game. Not good for the NLL in general, but I will go over my last one. It is about 3 of my favorite goalies in the league. I'm just going to fly through their numbers because we are running long. Chris Irregolari, like you just mentioned, last 4, 9.75 against, but at the same time, one of those was a 6-5 victory, so take that out. It's a little bit higher. In general, he's gone from 79% save percentage last year to 76, and a 9.79 goals against to a 10.84. I don't think he's doing brutal by any means, and by none of these guys are problems, but just how I expected them to perform throughout the year. Irregolari, I expected him to be just consistently solid the whole way through and just really take that next step. He is not. Same with Nick DeMood. Was really hoping he would take another step. He took a step back so far. 11 goals against last year, up to 12.62, 79.9, around that 80% save percentage we love to see last year, but down to 77.3. Again, not horrible, but not good. And then the last one, Brett Dobson, who I also really like for Georgia, 11.18 goals against last year, up to 11.52, so pretty much the same, but it's 78% save percentage down to 76.7% this year. All of these goalies are just goalies I expected to take that next step forward. It's not that they're having horrible years. It's not that I expect them to be bad throughout the season by any means, but I was expecting them to take that 78% and get it up to 79, that 79 up to 80, and just really boost themselves up to that next level, because they're all young goalies who have now been in the league a few years, and I expected them to take that next step, and all of them kind of taking a step back, at least to start the season. Like you said, Irregolari is starting to put it together. Dobson was really solid early. He's starting to fall just a little bit. Again, his numbers are still fine by normal standards. And DeMood, same thing. He's come on a little stronger toward the end, but this last weekend he just really tanked again. So really about finding consistency for all of them and just stepping up. I just had higher expectations for all of them. And even if you want to throw Matt Vince out there for funsies to kind of compare what he did last year to this year. Last year he was at 11.34 goals against. So far this year, even with allowing 28 goals in the last 2 games alone, he's still at a 9.55 goals against. Last year, 78% save percentage. This year, 81.6. So someone like Vince taking that huge leap forward. I mean, yes, it's still early in the season, but with a smaller sample size, you expect goalies to have better numbers than a full season sample size. So to see a season-long sample for all these other goalies kind of have them take a step back in a smaller sample is not really a great start for them.
Yeah, you were expecting the young next wave of goalies to take that next step and be more consistent. I think that's their biggest issue is the consistency.
I needed more Aiden Walsh abilities.
Yes, yeah, and even though Aiden Walsh just had the worst game of his season so far. But, yeah. But that will wrap up this week's episode. Phil, is there anything else? Because, as we expected, we went long, and that's why we broke this one into 2 segments.
Bills, please win. Please win. I don't know if Buffalo or the entire NFL can really handle a Bills loss. Everyone is the weight of the world is on Josh Allen's shoulders right now, and we'll see if he can hold it up. It's a lot of responsibility, but please win. My goodness, beat Kansas City.
Very fair. Yeah, on our next show, which we'll be recording right after the Bills game on Sunday.
It better be good.
It better be good, like we said last time. Please don't make us record while tears are streaming down our face. But we'll talk about that game. We got 2 Sabres games, and then we will go over the Bandits portion of the surprises and disappointments of the season so far through just 5 games for the Buffalo Bandits. So we'll take all these with a grain of salt. But that will end this episode. So check us back on Monday. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article came out on Tuesday. Give that a read. My Power Rankings came out on Thursday. Give that a read. Check out our store and our link tree on our socials or at the shop tab at the top of the website. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.